Today, we're jumping into this incredible story from the ancient world. It's about a king who inherits a nation that's just completely on the verge of collapse, and somehow he sparks this radical revolution. We're talking about King Hezekiah, his massive reforms, and his defiance of a global superpower, all laid out for us in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 18.
And really, this whole story hangs on a single, timeless question. Can one person, just one leader, actually turn a whole country around when it's heading for disaster? Hezekiah's story is just a fascinating case study in exactly that. So let's get into it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to look at his reign in 5 parts. First, we'll see the crisis he inherited. Then, we'll dive into his huge religious cleanup. And yes, that includes smashing a sacred serpent. We'll explore the faith that was driving him. And finally, we'll see the pretty stunning results of everything he did.
Okay, so to really appreciate what Hezekiah pulls off, you first have to understand the absolute mess he walked into. I mean, he wasn't just inheriting a throne, he was being handed the keys to a failing state.
Now, look at the timing here, because this is so important. Hezekiah takes the throne around 715 BC. But just a few years before that, in 722 BC, the neighboring northern kingdom of Israel was completely wiped off the map by Assyria. So for Hezekiah, this threat wasn't some distant problem. It was literally right on his doorstep.
And a crisis wasn't just external, it was happening inside his own kingdom too. His own father, King Ahaz, had dragged Judah down this path of religious corruption and basically turned them into a puppet state for the Assyrian Empire. Hezekiah's plan? A complete 180. He wanted to bring the nation back to its core beliefs and break free from foreign control.
So, with the kingdom in shambles, you might think Hezekiah would start with the military, or maybe the economy. Nope. His very first move is this massive, top-to-bottom religious cleanup. He goes straight for the heart of the nation's identity. And here's the key. He wasn't just making things up as he went along. The text says he did what was right according to all that David his father did. He was using King David, the absolute gold standard for leadership and faithfulness in their history, as his blueprint. This was all about getting back to their foundational covenant.
And believe me, he was thorough. He tore down the high places. These were all kinds of local, unauthorized shrines that have popped up everywhere. He smashed idols, he chopped down the Asherah poles linked to pagan gods. The whole goal was to purify worship and bring it all back to the one temple in Jerusalem, just like their law commanded.
But out of all of these reforms, one single act stands out as just, well, shocking. Hezekiah decided to destroy an object that wasn't some foreign idol. It was a revered, centuries-old relic from their own sacred history.
The text tells us he broke in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. Moses? Can you believe that? This wasn't some knockoff statue. This was an artifact made by their greatest prophet at God's command. So why on earth were people burning incense to it? And why would Hezekiah dare to destroy it? And you can really see its whole history right here. It started out as a symbol of God's healing way back in the wilderness. But over hundreds of years, people kind of forgot what it pointed to and started worshiping the object itself. It went from being a tool of faith to a full-blown, dangerous idol. Hezekiah saw this rot and made the incredibly bold call to smash it.
You know, as he was breaking it, the text says he gave it a new name, Nehushtan. It's this clever, almost dismissive nickname that basically means just a piece of brass. He was knocking it off its pedestal, reminding everyone that this thing they revered was, in the end, just a hunk of metal. It had no power of its own.
So what on earth gave him the nerve to do all this? The cleanup, smashing his sacred relic? I mean, where did that come from? It all came from one place: Hezekiah's personal, deeply held conviction.
I mean, what a statement. Just let that sink in. The author is making this incredible historical claim that no king of Judah, not before him or after him, ever trusted God the way Hezekiah did. It wasn't just about going through the motions. It was the depth of his personal faith that made him totally unique.
And this really gets us to the core argument of the whole chapter. It's presenting a really clear cause and effect relationship. The idea is that because Hezekiah clave to the Lord, meaning he held on tight and followed the rules, the direct result was God's favor. In this story, the formula is simple. Radical obedience brings national success.
Okay, so what did this divine favor actually look like in the real world? Well, according to the text, it translated directly into major political and military victories.
First up, this act of pure defiance. He rebelled against Assyria. Now remember, this is the empire that had just flattened his neighbors. They were the undisputed superpower. For this king of a tiny nation to stand up and say, yeah, we're not serving you anymore, that was an unbelievably dangerous move.
And his success wasn't just about defense. He actually went on the offensive against the Philistines, who were these longtime enemies on their southern border. He launched this successful campaign that went all the way to Gaza, which secured his kingdom and really strengthened his position in the whole region.
And he had the time to make it all stick. Hezekiah reigned for 29 years, starting when he was just 25. This long, stable rule gave him the runway he needed to actually implement these massive changes, religious, political, and military, and totally transform the nation from the inside out.
And that brings us right back to the central drama of his story. The story of Nu-Hishtan, that bronze serpent, leaves us with this really powerful question that goes way beyond ancient history. At what point does something that's meant for good, a symbol of faith, a national treasure, even a great idea, cross the line and become an idol, an object of blind worship that maybe, just maybe, needs to be smashed?